Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
What do you want to think right now? What do you want to feel right now? Let's work on our thoughts together.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
G'day, this is Dr. Justin Coulson, the host of Parental Guidance. No, hang on, the co-host and the parenting expert. I keep giving myself that promotion. Ali is going to be cranky if she hears the podcast. I'm so sorry, Ali. The co-host and parenting expert on Parental Guidance and founder of happyfamilies.com.au. It's Friday. Hello, Kylie, my wife, mum to our 6 kids.
Hey, sicko.
I can't believe it. I'm only a little bit allergy-ish because of you. I'm just saying. And we haven't even kissed. It's just living in the same house. This stuff's contagious. For those of you who are worried, no, we don't have COVID. We've just got one of those old-fashioned colds that sometimes go around. And thanks to Kylie, well, it looks like
sharing the love.
We're going to have a quiet weekend this weekend while we all get our immune systems back on track and drink and swallow and chew echinacea and vitamin C tablets up the wazoo because we just can't get enough of it. Hey, if you're new to the podcast, every Friday, and by the way, welcome. Thank you so much for choosing our podcast. Thank you for listening. We have got an extraordinary number of new podcast listeners. Every Friday we do this episode that we call I'll Do Better Tomorrow. The idea is that we reflect and review, really get intentional about the week that was so that we can be better parents tomorrow, next week, moving forward. We share a story each, an insight each, and what we've discovered about our parenting as we've reflected on the week that was. So Kylie, would you like to go first, ladies before gentlemen, or should I go first today?
I can go first.
Let's hear it.
Well, I had a really interesting experience this week. I've spent a lot of my life living in what I would call emotional overwhelm. And so I often find myself feeling really cranky and frustrated a lot of the time. Why are you smiling at me?
Well, this is an incredible insight that you've had.
Is that right?
Are you sharing it publicly? You haven't even told me that you've had this insight.
And so I've actually been working with a coach.
I want to pause for just a second. You're not a cranky person, not by any stretch, but I will agree that from time to time your initial response to a situation is one where, oh no, catastrophe, and I've got to be cranky or I've got to deal with the threat. So it's a really great insight. I'm so glad that you've shared that. So you've been working with a coach.
I have been working with a coach to kind of just start to work out how I can better process the different emotions, because I think in my emotional vocab, I probably have like 3 emotions. It's either elated and happy, or I am just mad or sad. I think they're my 3 emotions.
I think that you've got a much broader emotional repertoire, but it's interesting that you think that. I want to interrupt and just highlight something really important here. We've been married for getting dangerously close to 25 years now, married in the late...
Dangerous.
Well, wonderfully close to 25 years.
Yeah, that's a better word.
We've been married since the late 1990s, and we've never really done anything like the whole life coaching thing, but this is something that you decided that you wanted to do, and I've watched the way your, I'm going to call it inner work, is changing the way that you think and the way that you respond. And it's really exciting. So tell us more about this emotional insight that you've had.
Well, with so many moving parts in any given day, I'm on the go all the time and often don't allow myself to take, I guess, a little bit of a chill pill every now and again so that I can start to process some of the emotions that I'm feeling, or, just actually thinking through the scenarios that have happened in my day and what it is I actually am feeling about them, because it's just this overwhelming feeling of overwhelm.
And 6 kids will do that, right? Like, it's busy. There's stuff going on all the time.
And this week I noticed that one of our children has a tendency to just get angry at everything. And I wondered whether or not that's exactly how she's feeling. And so I actually took her aside one day and we spent some time on the bed together, having a little snuggle and a cuddle, and we talked about things. And I said to her, you know what? I've started doing something and I think it will really help you. I said, I want you to spend the next 3 minutes just writing. I said, get a clean piece of paper. And I said, I don't want you to think about what you're writing. I don't care if it's got spelling mistakes or if there's punctuation. I just want you to write whatever you're thinking about right now and just put it all on paper. And I said, I'm just going to go put my makeup on because I've got to go out today. So I'm going to go put my makeup on and I'll just leave you so you've got some space to just write. She kind of looked at me like, what have I got to write? And I said, I just want you to write what's in your head. So I walked off and I kind of checked my watch and I came back a few minutes later and honestly, she was like possessed. I was watching her. The pen was like skimming the page. She was writing so fast. And I said, are you done yet? And she didn't even lift her head. She just kept writing. And I said, okay, I'll give you another few minutes. And I walked away. She filled about 5 pages of just her thoughts and it all came spilling out onto the page. And I didn't get to read that. That was hers. But we were able to kind of just talk about that process because what happens when it's all stuck in our head is that we actually can't process it because there's so many conflicting thoughts.
And it just keeps on going round and 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 confusing us and frustrating us and making us feel overwhelmed.
Yes. And so she was able to do that. And so I said, if you could just pick one emotion that you're feeling out of all of the things that you've written down, what's one thing you're feeling right now? And she couldn't say the word. And I said, why don't you just write it down on the page? So she wrote down what she was feeling. And I said, and if you could pick one thought that helps you to feel that feeling or makes, that feeling more apparent, what is it? She was able to write her thought down. And we were able to talk about that and acknowledge that our thoughts actually create the feelings we have and then create the actions that we do or take as a response to those feelings. And if I don't want to feel this anymore, what can I think? What can I think to help me feel what I want? And it was so powerful as we sat there and we looked at it, and she kind of just looked at me like, I can do that? Like, yes, you can. And so every day since then, we've just had these little conversations where I get to ask her, what do you want to think right now? What do you want to feel right now? Let's work on our thoughts together. And it's been such a powerful moment.
I love that. Can I get a bit sciencey on you?
Yeah, I'd love you to.
Actually, I want to get philosophical first. Epictetus said people are not disturbed by things, but by the view they take of them, which is really kind of where you're going here.
Yeah.
Stuff happens. What are you going to think about that thing? Allow that to dictate where you go, and it can either end up for better or for worse. And it ties in with this ABC model. It's a cognitive model that has been used by psychologists for decades now to help us to understand what's going on with our thinking. And what the ABC model is based about is, so we've got A for adversity, we've got B for beliefs, and we've got C for consequences. So basically, when bad things happen, that's the adversity, something challenging, something horrible, something difficult. And then what normally happens is, in our child's mind, and even in our minds, we completely skip the B, the belief that we have about the adversity, and we go straight to the C, straight to the consequences. So something bad happens, and boom, the consequence is that I lash out, or that I'm angry, or that I feel like I'm not good enough, or something like that. And what you're really doing is you're saying, let's just focus on the thinking. What's the belief? When this stuff happens, what do you believe about it? Because what you believe about it is going to determine how you act. It's just that the belief thing happens invisibly. It happens so quickly. It happens without any conscious awareness that this is what I believe. And if we can work on what we're thinking, then we can change the actions that we take as a result of those thoughts that had previously been invisible. Am I summarizing what you're describing the right way?
Yeah.
The ABC model, it's the same as the life coaching model that you've been working on. I actually write about it in a lot of detail in my book, 9 Ways to a Resilient Child. There's a whole chapter about stinking thinking. And so what your I'll Do Better Tomorrow is really about is saying that you've worked on one of our kids' stinking thinking.
I think the most powerful moment in that was just allowing her the permission to give herself the permission to just write it all out. Because sometimes there are things in our head we can't even speak, we can't utter. Mm-hmm. And the power that we can find in just putting it down on paper means that it's almost like it's not ours. We can see it from a different perspective.
Yeah, it creates that psychological distance. I think this is one of the reasons that journaling is such a powerful psychological intervention. Once we get it out of our brain and on paper, we can process it differently. What a great I'll do better tomorrow. Maybe we should do that more often, not just with that child, but with...
I think that this will become a regular in our home.
It's the start of something new. I like it. Up next, we're going to find out how I absolutely nailed it for the first time in weeks with a child who has been a little bit challenging.
It's the Happy Families Podcast.
For a happier family, try a Happy Families membership, because a happy family doesn't just happen. Details at happyfamilies.com.au.
It's the Happy Families Podcast, the podcast for the time poor parent who just wants answers now. And you've prompted it. You said you've nailed it this week. Let's hear it. What have you done?
So over the last few years, our youngest daughter, Miss Emily, who is 7, has made it really, really clear that she doesn't want me involved in the nighttime routine. She wants you to put her to bed. She wants you to read her the stories. She wants you to do the whole nighttime thing. But with you not being particularly well over the last few nights and being a little bit kind of just overwhelmed and wiped out, well, let's just say that she's been a little bit more rambunctious than normal, a bit harder to put to bed than normal.
The TV show and late nights hasn't had anything to do with it.
Watching parental guidance has definitely not helped her with her bedtime routine, but it hasn't helped you either because you've been tired and not feeling well and sort of stumbled upstairs when the show finishes at like 8:45 or 9 o'clock. And for somebody as old as us, that's a late night, right?
You're going to pull out the walking stick next.
I think that you might need it. I don't know. So I heard you trying to put her to bed the other night, and it wasn't going very well. It was apparent immediately that she was bouncing around up and down, and next thing I knew, you were in bed. And I was like, hang on, this child, it's like 9:15 and she's still running around the house like it's the middle of the day. What's going on? And I can't remember exactly what your response was. It was something like, like you had nothing. And I said, don't worry, I'll look after this. I think you started to get up. You were going to go and look after her. No, I've got this. It's been ages since she's let me put it down. I'm going to do it. I knew from the outset that I had to get this right. I could hear her running up and down the corridor and shouting at her sisters, and she was in a good mood, but she clearly did not want to go to bed. And I remember my approach, I was so intentional with my approach. So my typical response would be, hey, it's time to go to bed. And I'll sort of stomp down the hall and say, that's it. I'm being the pufferfish parent. I'm making myself as big and scary as I can so that I'll just intimidate her into climbing into bed. Obviously, I might be embellishing that a little bit, but that's kind of a standard parenting response, right? Like I've told you to
embellish
go to bed
things, yes.
Yeah. And go to bed. So I was really intentional to not do anything like that. Instead, my intention was I need to make her feel completely safe and I was going to say subdued, but that's not the right word. I wanted her to feel like her energy didn't have to be overly high because mine was soft and gentle. And as I walked towards her, she saw me and I said, do I get to have big nighttime huggies? And she came and gave me a great big hug. She was bouncing, like full of beans. I said, it's time for bed. Let's go and hug. So she climbed into bed and I said, do you mind if I lay down on the bed next to you? And she rolled over. And I said, it's been ages since I got to put you to bed and this feels so special. Thank you. Can I sing you a couple of songs? And she said, if you want to. So with my not very with it voice, thanks to somebody who gave me a cold the other day, I sang her 2 or 3 songs and we hugged.
Did she ask you what songs you were trying to sing?
Yeah, a couple of times. And then she was like, Daddy, I need this. I need to close the door. And instead of me saying, no, you stay there, stay still, I just said, okay, that's fine. Close the door and come and hug me. And she wanted to get up 2 or 3 times. And so she did. She got out of bed and hopped back into bed. And each time, no pressure, no hassle, totally calm. It was just bliss. And after about 3 minutes of the completion of my final, I'm going to say it was a song. It wasn't much of a song, but I'm going to say it was a song. This kid was out to it. And I thought, this is how we do it. Soft, gentle, empathy, understanding, compassion. I know I teach this stuff, but every now and again I kind of forget because I'm tired or I'm cranky or because you're doing it and I'm out of practice.
And this is where you can thank me for facilitating the opportunity for you to spend time with your daughter in the bedtime routine. Now you're not so much out of practice anymore, are you?
I'm just saying it was literally one of the highlights of my week. And it all happened because setting the intention at the outset, it set us up for a successful experience together.
High five, Dr. Coulson.
High five, yeah, heck yeah. So we really hope that these ideas, these take-home messages, sitting down with the kids, working through what are the beliefs that you've got, what are the ideas that are leading to the outcomes that you're experiencing. Having those conversations can be really powerful. And setting the intention with every interaction, whether it's a sleep time interaction or anything else, can make a huge difference in how happy your family feels. We'd love to hear about how you're doing better as a result of I'll Do Better Tomorrow. What intentional things are you doing? What reflections are you having? You can email us, podcasts@happyfamilies.com.au. We would love to hear your stories and also your questions. We'll be back to answering your questions every Tuesday in a couple of weeks. If you've been enjoying the podcast, please jump onto Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star rating and review. Apparently, I don't actually have any evidence of it, but I hear everybody else say it on their podcasts. Apparently, if you do that, the Apple algorithm bumps our podcast up in other people's feeds, which means that they're more likely to discover it, which means that they're more likely to make their families happier. So if you love it, please take a minute. It literally only takes that long. Leave us a review. Let us know how much you're enjoying the podcast. As always, the Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. Craig Bruce is our executive producer. And if you'd like more info about making your family happier, you can find it at happyfamilies.com.au. Have a great weekend.